Authentic student involvement is a key strategy to increase ownership and engagement. While we as educators understand this intuitively, creating opportunities for authentic involvement can be hard, especially with technological resources. In this episode, we speak with Kern Kelley, who is not only a fantastic educator, but someone who has repeatedly shown how attuned he is to this challenge. My name is Joshua Schmidt with the MLTI Ambassador team here at the Maine Department of Education, and you're listening to the MLTI 2.0 podcast, Teaching with Tech. Hello and welcome to the podcast, Kern. Could you introduce yourself and your role here at Nokomis and the DOE?
Of course, I'm glad to be here. Thank you, Joshua. So my name is Kern Kelley. I'm a technology integrator at RSU 19, K-12, and I've been in this district for 20 years. And a more recent role, I'm working with the Department of Education, specifically the MLTI component of that. And we are started a subgroup or a group called SLAM, which stands for Student Leadership Ambassadors of Maine. And the idea that's a student-focused group that really promotes students being part of the solution and really kind of working with teachers and educators around the state.
So when you talk about SLAM, it always felt like to me that the L was a really important part of that, where it's student leaders. It's not just simply students being involved. So can you talk a little bit about like how a SLAM club works at Nokomis and kind of your vision for why that leadership component really matters?
Yeah, absolutely. So the idea there, and again, the leadership is probably the most important part. We know students, use technology a lot, and they are typically pretty comfortable with it. And so for a long time, I've thought of technology as basically just a vehicle, as an opportunity for our kids, our students, to be able to, one, help each other, but also develop those soft skills that we want them to have. So beyond just the technical expertise of, pushing that button or turning that screw or that kind of end of things, being able to share that with somebody else. If you teach somebody else something, if you teach to learn, you have to know that content really, really well. So the idea is that we promote that in our own school, but also schools around the state, that it starts SLAM clubs. We support them with either equipment or expertise or, just connecting, virtually, and having them be able to take that on for their own schools. And so they start those SLAM clubs at different schools. They help teachers, they help each other, and they really give back.
I love that mention of not only technology as a vehicle for other things, but also that teach to learn. And I think one of the things that opened my eyes to the power of this is seeing your weekly SLAM show that you do on the YouTube channel, and how those kids you would assume would be nervous and not ready and prepared, but they're always so clearly prepared and ready to go. And just the professionalism that you see those are lifelong skills those kids are going to have as they go into college and beyond. So talk a little bit about how preparing for those types of events with those student leaders, how does that have a big impact? And kind of what do you see as the outcomes for those kids, being in that leadership role?
Yeah, I really appreciate using the word professional. That's literally the vocabulary we use in class. And so we have advanced broadcasting classes and intro to broadcasting classes. And I talk about it with the students, and really they ask, what's the difference, Mr. Kelley? What's the difference between the intro classes and the advanced classes? And the biggest difference is we transition those students from amateur to professional. What I mean by that is, the amateur idea is that, when you do an assignment for school, you do an essay or you do a paper or whatever, you're pretty much doing it for you. You give it to your teacher, they look at it, they might spill spray the ink on it, but they're giving it back to you. It's kind of that back and forth. And typically that's as far as it goes. In our professional version or our advanced version, the students are really responsible for providing work or doing things that other people are going to count on them. Like we do events, we go to live events we'll talk about in a second. But when we do those, other people are counting on them very much so, to the point where, I don't really feel like doing this, or I just kind of walk away, or, whatever. That's that responsibility aspect. And again, that's what we're really teaching our kids beyond the technical, beyond even the presentation skills, is that responsibility aspect of this, where people are counting on you and you really need to come through. And so to me, that mimics, we see these same types of things in sports all the time. We see it maybe in music, where kids are part of a bigger band and they're going to come together and they are going to do a performance at some point. So they're going to have that presentation component to it. This is that, except for with an academic bent to it. So we're taking, regular content from the classroom, but we're providing that element of exposure to other places. And what it does is it makes it more serious. So kids, like you said, they feel pretty comfortable. That's not by mistake. I work with kids starting all the way through. We started as, young as, elementary school. We do more stuff in the middle school, of course, and then get them up to the high school level. You don't have a winning, say, sports team at a high school level without having that feeder program. And so we really work with our students all the way through. So by the time that you see them at a high school level, they've done this many, many, many times. The common kind of joke I tell the students is it's like shooting foul shots. When you shoot foul shots, you can't watch somebody else do it or read about somebody else doing it. You have to do it yourself again and again and again and again, to the point where you don't really think about it anymore. And that's what we hope to get most, not all, but most of our students to be able to feel comfortable doing that.
For teachers interested in creating their own SLAM clubs at their schools, Kern is an invaluable resource. Many schools could benefit by having their SLAM club be an internal tool for tech or software support for both teachers and students. And a good place to start with your own group might be the weekly videos put on by Kern's SLAM Club, which I will link in the show notes. I wanted to transition a little bit to, your SLAM group does what we call SLAM showcase events around the state. And we've been doing those, on and off for, pre-pandemic and now post-pandemic. Can you talk a little bit about what a SLAM showcase event is?
Yeah, absolutely. So our weekly SLAM show is a live recorded, video YouTube channel, basically. So people can join us live, or they can just watch it afterward. And that's a pretty standard show, if you want to think of it that way. These are in-person events. And it's funny, we have to, post-COVID, we have to put that terminology in there. It's in person. We're coming to your school. In fact, this week, we're actually going down to Lubec to Kathy Morse's school. And I was chatting with her on the phone beforehand, making, set up. And she said, okay, well, what time should we turn on Zoom or whatever? And I was like, no, we're coming to your school. And she's like, really? You're coming here physically? Like, she was absolutely blown away. So that's really kind of the ability for us to go to a place. Obviously, it just changes things, right? The reason why we, in person is so important. So we can put on an event at your school. We usually do about once a month, is it kind of typically the schedule for us that works out. And it is a full day. It is all encompassing. So your students that are involved in that, that's all they do that day. We take care of all the nuts and bolts of it, as far as, the different topics, what they're going to working on, the technology, all the pieces. And the whole purpose of that is to really celebrate what kids are able to do and expose teachers that are also participating in what some of these technologies that are available to them right now. All the tools that we use and showcase are all free. They're all web-based, so it doesn't matter what device you have. It's very much a celebration of whatever you're working with. We will work with you. So that's kind of the idea behind it.
So you talked a little bit about how it's impactful for both students and teachers. Can you talk a little bit about the role that students have and the role that teachers have in the event that makes it so powerful?
Yeah, thank you for that. Very explicit about that. So the students' job is just to learn. They're part of the sessions. So what we typically do is, again, a full day event, and we have 4 sessions that students will rotate through. So throughout the day, they'll go through 4 different sessions about different topics. We do coding, we do 3D modeling, we do 2D graphic animations, all different kind of stuff. And then we bring them together at the end of the day and put that work together.
I was lucky enough to do one of these events at China Middle School. We had sessions on virtual reality with CoSpaces, 3D modeling with Tinkercad, coding with drones, escape rooms, and even a high-altitude weather balloon we released with items from our classes. My students talked about that day for months afterwards.
The teacher's job is to be a student for that day. And so a couple things about that. One, I think it's really powerful for our students to see their teachers learning. How often do they get to do that? They get to see their teachers sitting right beside them, learning just like them. And I think that's a great thing to model and show. And I also hope that, and we've had good success with this, that following this day and kind of showing what's available to teachers and how easy it is to kind of break that ice, that first level of introduction to these tools, then it's just a matter for the teachers to look at what they did and say, oh, well, we're doing a unit on whatever, we're doing a unit on frogs next month. You know what, I'll use these tools to kind of support that, or I'll use, doing a unit on whatever it is, and use these tools to really kind of supplement or really make it, more engaging if they can. And the kids have already had that introduction to it, so they kind of know where to get going, where to start. The hard part's done. Now it's just a matter of what you do with it.
This cultural shift was the part that I didn't fully understand at first. When I was preparing my session, I felt like I needed to know every answer and troubleshoot every problem. I was afraid of looking unprepared or lacking knowledge in front of my students. In reality, the best learning happened when we all learned together. Students would find problems or pitch ideas, and it became less of asking me for the answer and more about how we could find that answer together. And that cultural shift lasted way longer than a single event on a single day. So most of the time, these events are structured around like STEM-based activities. Could they be themed around something other than STEM-related activities? And how do you think that a school could kind of make it their own to make that event valuable for them?
Oh, 100%. They could choose, again, the focus of the content is really up to the school. Like they could say, like, you know what, we're doing units on, I don't know, language arts this month, and we want to focus on, poetry or whatever it is. That's cool. That's totally cool. And so we could, you could adapt what you're working on. I said this before, like way back when we used to do word processing, we weren't really learning the tool Word, say, we were learning how to word process or whatever the equivalent thereof. So when we're doing these things, we're not learning the tool, say, for example, Tinkercad. We're learning how to do 3D modeling. Yes, we're using Tinkercad in this situation, but it should be applicable to other tools that do similar things. And so, of course, there's little feature differences here and there, or little things, but generally speaking, that same skill set that you're using, if it doesn't apply to other things, then I get a question: what were you doing that for? What's the purpose of it? And so we really are purposefully open-ended as far as that goes. We have things that we focus on, but if a school came to us and said, hey, we really this month we're talking a lot about X, we really want to do this thing, we could absolutely adapt to fit that in. And again, schools can too. If any school was interested and wanted to, like, hey, we really want to do this thing, we don't necessarily need you to show up, but we want to replicate that, we'd be more than happy to give them any of our templates or whatever they need to help them do that. In fact, one of the conversations we had with one of our events this year in Benton Elementary School, we did the event for a sixth graders there, and it went really well, and the kids had a great time, and we all had a great time. And kind of the thought was, there was another fourth grade teacher who's super interested in having the equivalent thing for them. And so what the plan is we work with the sixth graders. They are then going to, choose a handful of students from that group to pass it on to the fourth graders. And so that idea of students first being the students and then becoming the teachers for other people, and then learning in that process. And so that's an awesome idea that we can, really push that forward. And again, keep it rolling. So eventually, the whole purpose of my job is to work myself out of a job, right? The idea that you don't need me anymore, it happens because it's a good thing to happen.
So I really wanted to kind of close with schools that were interested in either starting a slam club specifically in their building or doing a slam showcase type event. Now, I know that you said you do these about once a month. Kind of where do you plan these types of events? So how far in advance are they chosen? Sure. And so if a school was interested in doing this type of event, but there wasn't availability for the next year, like what are some of their options?
Yeah. So the very first place to go to for all this information is MLTI.me. So MLTI.me. And that site will bring you to more information about all the stuff, what the slam clubs are. You can watch a couple of sample videos. You can see what the showcase agenda looks like. All that stuff is right there, as well as my contact information. Please feel free to reach out to me at any time. More than happy to answer any questions that I can. And so the idea there is that you sign up for your own slam club at your school, and we actually provide equipment. We'll send equipment once you sign up. We'll send equipment to you for things like video cameras or webcams or lights or microphones or whatever you need, depending on what your situation is. And then if you can join us live, we go every Thursday at 11 o'clock live, and that'd be fantastic. We have students join us at different schools. Or if you can't join us live because of scheduling issues, of course, then no problem. You can just watch the recorded video afterward. Every week we have basically the topics are activities that kids can follow along. Our view was we started kind of the conversations about doing this with the MLTI team during COVID, and kind of like, what can we do to replicate that idea of clubs that we couldn't physically have during that time? And so we would do these live videos where kids could join and follow along. And again, these were all based on, by the time they were done that lesson, they would have created something, and it would be unique to them. It would be bespoke, but it was also something they could keep playing with forever. Like, it was different tools they could use to keep working with. And so we kept doing those. We're up to episode, I think, 48 now. And so we're almost up to number 50, which is pretty exciting. Any of these lessons at any time, if you want to jump back into it and say, hey, we're learning about, I don't know, photo imaging editing. What do I use here? Well, we have an episode about that. How do you use different tools to be able to just use a web-based photo image editor, stuff like that. And so hopefully we'll get more people interested and join us.
I wanted to give a huge thanks to Kern Kelley and his Slam Club at Nokomis. For those who know Kern, you know just how positive and energetic he is, but you also know that he's always willing to help and support teachers. I will make sure to leave his contact info in the description of this episode for those who wanted to learn more. You can also contact the MLTI Ambassador team at DOE-MLTI 2.0 at maine.gov or by filling out the form in the show notes. We would love to help you design your own Slam Showcase style day or support you with other technology integration needs. Now, in Rob fashion, we're going to close this episode with some trivia. How does the moon cut his hair? Eclipse it. Class dismissed.